and welcome to your weekly roundup of all of the latest news and ramble about the world of electric cars from the team at electrifying.com. So this week, we discuss the cheapest electric cars in the UK, brands that we want to see come back from the dead, and charging disasters. Plus, we're going to be answering your car buying conundrums and dipping into the postbag to find out your views on everything electric. Welcome to the Kilowatt Half Hour. I'm Nicola Hume.
I'm Tom Barnard.
And I'm Mike Askew.
Hey team, how are we all right?
Yeah.
I'm good, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Shall we start things off with what sort of caught your eye, what you've been up to this week? Shall we start with you, Tom?
Well, yeah, not been doing much this week, but I have got a moan about charging. Shall we start with a moan, or should we do something a bit nicer?
Start with a negative.
Yeah. Let's get the moan out of the way, and then it can only go up from there. So that's
okay.
Nice.
Well, I had to go and see somebody in hospital, and I didn't have to be long. So everybody moans about hospital car parking charges, don't they? As it happens, mine was £3.70 for 26 minutes, which might be seen as excessive, but they have electric car charging points. Now, normally they're full of all the consultants' eyepaces, but there was a space, and it was kind of pole position, the best spot in the whole car park. So I thought I'll park there. Plugged in the Leaf and looked at it. It was a charge point one, and I have a charge point app. So plugged in, wandered off, came back 26 minutes later, took the thing out fine, then looked at how much I'd been charged. Now, it's 42p per kilowatt hour, which is, all right, yeah. But there's a minimum charge of £3. So my 26 minutes cost me £3. And on top of that, because it was my first charge with them, they took a £10 charge to put in credit on the thing. So it was a bit of a stinger, really, for 26 minutes. It was like £1.50 per kilowatt hour if you look at it, how long I was there. So I was like half tempted to like hang around and have a sandwich or something just to get the best out of it. But I didn't. I thought that'd be silly. But it did make me slightly grumpy.
I mean, you might as well have done, just kind of hung around. But you should know these things, Tom, that they're going to take an extra tenner out of your pocket. And that sounded a bit too good to be true, the perfect parking space, didn't it?
Yeah, true. Anyway, that was my moan of the week. And the Leaf passed its MOT.
Hey! Still going strong! That's
great! I always pace around like a kind of expectant father when it's MOT time. It's just, I don't know why I get so stressed, because if it fails, you just pay some money and they fix it. But it worries me. I don't know why
but
so
it's
much.
Done.
I know it's done for another year.
Hooray! Yeah, but you're getting rid of it soon, though, aren't you? That was the plan.
Well, yeah. I keep thinking about it, but we'll see. Now it's passing MOT, I'll probably forget about it again.
All right, fair enough.
It's all positive.
Come on, then, give me some positive things that happened this week. Should we go to Mike?
Yeah, well, you obviously missed me all last week when I wasn't on the pod. I was in Amsterdam. And it wasn't for work for once, which was quite nice. I went there for a long weekend, mainly to buy trousers, because the Dutch are freakishly tall. So I can go clothes shopping in Amsterdam and not feel like I'm a circus act. So that's one of the reasons why I go. One of the things I did notice about Amsterdam is their electric car game is on point. It really is. I mean, I got a cab from the airport. It's a brand new Toyota BZ4X, a Barry, and on the way back I got a brand new Ioniq 6, and this is just like the local grotty minicab company sending these out. It was fantastic. So really nice run there and back. It's an odd eclectic mix of cars in Amsterdam. They like these like really small electric cars, stuff that makes an Ami look like an SUV. They have these little tiny 2-seater things. They have loads of electric cargo bikes,
like a Twizy.
No, smaller than a Twizy. Almost like you kind of have to double take to think they're fully grown adults in this car, because it just seems to be about 6 inches either side of them. But it's perfect for Amsterdam. That's all you need. And obviously it's a cycling culture in the Netherlands, and certainly in the heart of Amsterdam. It's just, I know this is heresy to say, from what we do for a living, but it's really nice to go places that aren't full of cars. And the cars that were there, I think the Dutch were really early adopters of Tesla. So all the cars parked up in the area that we were staying in were either really early Model 3s, late 80s Saabs for some reason, and these and Opel Rocks, which is the Opel version of the Citroen Ami. So I don't know if the Citroen dealer's fallen out with the people of Amsterdam, but for every one Ami, there were 10 Opel Rocks. So the Opel dealer's obviously doing a slightly better job than the Citroen dealer is in sort of downtown Amsterdam. But it was a fascinating place. And the Netherlands still, I had to look it up when I got back. I mean, they're still very much kind of promoting electric cars. I looked it up. You still get 4,000 euros off the purchase of a new one, and you get 2,000 euros off the purchase of a used electric car. I mean, Amsterdam, they want to get rid of cars entirely, petrol, electric, whatever. You know, they want to make it entirely cyclist and pedestrianised. But, you know, generally speaking, as a country, they're still pumping money into getting people into electric. And I guess they're working out this will trickle down to the used market, you know, at some point. So it's just encouraging to see still people, you know, a lot of people buying electric cars. So that was kind of that. And I had an Enyaq for a week, which was another positive, a new 2024 model year, which is kind of slightly sneaked under the radar because it's got all this new, which is on all the ID models and all the Cupras, the Cupra Born and all the Skoda models, is the new drivetrain. It's a big change, actually. It's a lot more efficient. It's got like 545 Newton meters of torque. And I was thinking, Tom, you know, back in the days of, you know, when we were on a certain weekly car magazine, if we drove a car that had that amount of torque, we'd probably be in Italy driving a supercar, wouldn't we, or something? So it's astonishingly quick, this thing. And it was great. The only frustration was when I was trying to write up, the review's just gone live today, but I was writing the review and I use Apple Pages for writing this. And it kept correcting Enyaq to Enya for some reason. So exactly, the spell check, Apple spell check has more reference to do with early 90s singers than it does with cars. So by the time I'd worked out how to correct that and actually put it in as Enyaq, so I didn't keep changing it. So if you're reading the review and you're wondering why I'm writing about an Irish singer, it's one of the things I didn't manage to correct. So if you do find it, please point it out. But
that's worth noting. Yeah. I do all my reviews on Pages as well.
Pages, right? No, so, yes, you've got to be careful. They might slot in, you know, Morrissey when you're writing about, you know, something. But anyway, yeah, exactly. So that was my week. What have you been up to, Nicola?
What have I been up to? Also, I finally shot the long-term review of my Genesis GV60. We've done a whole Mystic Meg thing that I really hope goes down well because of the crystal ball thing. So we did this whole thing. Anyway, but the amount of party tricks that car has had. So I've had it for like 5 months now. And I still feel like every day I'm noticing something new that it does. Because it just does everything. Like it tells you that you've left a window open. It will, you know, it's got the amazing massaging seats with the bum punch that we've discussed before. It's got the whole air purification thing, which I was talking to Tom about the other day, right? So what it does is it tells you how clean the air is inside the car. So it will tell you if it's good, and then it will go like normal, then it will go poor, very poor. So if there's someone in the car with you that, I don't know, that's smoking or something, or maybe lets off a little cheeky fart or something like that, you will see that the air quality goes down to very poor. But as you approach tunnels, like it starts circulating the air inside the car rather than taking everything from the outside. It's little things that I'm just like, I end up getting really, really impressed by. The more I drive it, the more I kind of get impressed by it and go, oh, wow, that does that thing too. That's really cool.
Now, Nicola, talking of cleanliness and your Genesis, I have seen a preview of that video. Were your local car washes shut?
Right.
I've got to do the thumbnail for that video.
Can I say, listen to me, right? Listen. It was chucking it down that day. And where we film at the barn, you know those roads approaching the barn. It is disgusting. Like those, it is like driving through a river to get into the barn. And that day that we filmed it, it was chucking it down all day. So I was like, I'll tell you what we'll do is as soon as it stops raining, I'll take it down the car wash and I'll get it cleaned. And then it just didn't happen. So, but here's my theory. If I'm filming a car that I've been living with, this is my car that I'm actually using, then surely you want to see what it's like when I live with it. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. Is that all right?
No.
I'll show you where the hose is next time.
Yeah. When they take that car back, they're going to have to dismantle that at sea or something. It's just going to be toxic.
Even the bit like I opened the boot and then I forgot that I didn't clear out the boot. So then like inside there's like my jacket, my wellies, some hangers.
Never getting a
The
Genesis again.
the side of the car has got so much dirt on it, you could grow potatoes in it. It's.
I'm doing the thumbnail for it at the moment, and it needs a lot of cleaning up. Let's put it that way. My Photoshop's in overdrive.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay,
right?
we'll move on.
Okay, all right. We digress. We move on. So, like, what you were talking about, like the electric cars and all that sort of stuff, and charging and things, and what it's like in Amsterdam. I found it was very, very similar in Norway when I was there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh yes, yeah. That's
the cabs that pick you, like I got picked up. Local minicab company picked us up in a Mercedes EQS. I was like, what the hell is happening here? This is a bit nice.
Don't get that in the UK, do you?
I know, but I'm going to Valencia tomorrow. So we're recording this on Wednesday. I'm going to Valencia tomorrow with the FIA for another eco rally, which is like a whole rally test where it's all electric cars and you have to stick to a certain speed limit to see which car does it the most efficiently, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see how Valencia behaves in terms of charging and electric cars, because the last time I did that was in Monaco, which I remember telling you was seriously impressive when it comes to charging and electric cars. So full update for you next week after my trip to Valencia from tomorrow. So there we go.
Excellent. That's good. Well, the post bag we had last week, we'll go into that later on in the podcast, but the stuff on Lancia, to give it its correct pronunciation, was off the scale. But I think every other comment was about the Ypsilon and bringing back the brand and everything. Of course, Lancia hasn't disappeared. It just hasn't really been officially in the UK for a long time. And Tom and I were chatting earlier and thinking, well, you know what, this is potential for a lot of other brands to come back from the dead, aren't there? You know, the sort of brands that have been dormant or laid off or, you know, sucked up as part of one great big kind of when one brand's sold to another. It just made me think this might be the start of something new. Might see a lot of the older brands coming back. So I don't know if either of you two guys have got something you'd really like to see come back.
Can I throw my hat in the ring?
Yeah.
Because we were talking about long boys last week, which are also known as estates to regular people.
To most
I like
people.
To call them long boys.
Yes.
And I'm going to throw out a Saab 9.3. Wouldn't that be amazing? Throw out one of them. That's always been one of those cars that I'm like, that is a cracking car. That is a cracking car. And everyone I know that's ever had one has absolutely loved it. And I feel like if that came back as an EV, that would be a huge seller, surely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saab's quite an innovative brand, isn't it? I think that the last Saab 9.5 still looks like a good car. Yeah. But that kind of alternative architect type owner are the type of people who are now driving electric cars, aren't they? They're all probably in Ioniq 5s like you, Mike. That's a very architect-y type car, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you have to have thick rim spectacles in order to buy one. And if you walk into the dealership and you can't, then they force you to go
or
and
a Polestar.
Or a
Polestar,
Polestar,
I suppose, is the spiritual successor to Saab.
Yeah, I guess so. You need to have a sort of, turtleneck jumper, don't you? And sort of knitted trousers. And you'd be fine.
Go on, Tom. What would it be for you?
Well, I quite like Saabs as well. Some of the old British brands I love. I mean, I suppose things like Austin and Morris have been a bit tainted by some of the rubbish they made in the later day. So maybe something like Riley, that would be quite, or Alvis. I can see myself in an Alvis. That would be quite a nice, sporty but luxury brand, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, did you see the Morris? What was it called? The Morris JE. That was like a full.
Oh yeah.
Electric
Has that actually
kind of
been launched
thing.
yet?
Well, I saw it at an event like last year sometime, and I thought it looked really cool. And they were like, "Oh yeah, it's going to go into production," and it still hasn't happened. But I would love for that to happen. But it is that car that they've got, the concept car. You can actually drive it around and stuff.
Yeah, the van, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd like to see I'm a similar thing to Tom. The old sort of there's so many old classic British brands that have still got currency and a heck of a back catalogue. Triumph, I think, would get my nod. I know the motorcycle side has been revived under a chap called John Bloor, and is doing exceptionally well. But the car brand, I think the trademark is still owned by BMW, along with all a few others like Wolseley and Riley. So, and I think there was a concept car last year, T25 Triumph concept car, but I think it was done by a design house rather than anything official. I think they just put the Triumph name on it. But you got to think, if you're sitting at BMW, you think you must be sitting on what a success Mini has been over the years. And Triumph, because your first car was a Triumph, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I had a Triumph Herald as my first car.
Did you?
Yeah. Well,
Convertible.
Should have kept that.
Convertible. Well, no, I couldn't because it wasn't the safest car in the world.
Right.
Could you not open doors at the same time or something?
Yeah, I had this problem where the chassis was so rusty that you couldn't open both doors at the same time. And you had to shout to people, so don't do it. And if they did, you had to get the jack out and jack the car up in the middle so that you could get the doors to shut.
Brilliant.
Safety first, people.
Yes. I think an electric version of a TR7. A TR7 is still a great car when you look at it now. There was one parked up at Parkrun the other week, and I was taking a picture of it, and just the owner came out and he said, "Oh, he'd restore it." I mean, they're quite shonky when you look up at them. I mean, they've got panel gaps you can see from space, and they're not that well made, but there's just something about that shape that still kind of has currency. Everything looks a bit odd because it's all on like sort of 14-inch wheels, which were big for the late 70s, early 80s. But I think, a reborn TR7 sports car, I mean, that would just be, because, especially when we talk about the Lancia thing, the Stratos, there's so many of these brands that have got such an incredible back catalogue that now we're in the days of skateboard platforms, which, the same for every car. It's really a coach building job, isn't it? And I guess if they can guarantee enough sales out of it, then it's got potential. So I would love to see our TR7 come back.
Yeah, that would be. My dad still has his old. He's got a 1975 Spitfire.
There you go.
Still got it.
There you
and
go.
It's the slowest car in the world, but he loves it.
Doesn't matter, does it? Doesn't
it's
matter.
in British Racing
Such a
Green.
pretty thing.
Work of art. Yeah. Okay. But if MG can do the Cyberster, what's stopping Triumph from giving it a go on sorting out the Spitfire and making that electric? That would be amazing.
Exactly. If there's anyone listening to this and thinks, yes, we've missed something, or you want to see something come back, please let us know in the comments below. And if you're wondering why we're talking about comments below, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, we're talking about the YouTube version of this wonderful podcast on YouTube, and we have a lively comment section below. So please add to that.
And it does get lively.
It does get lively. It does get lively.
Love it.
Yeah, it does. I'm talking of lively. Tom, you found some cheap deals. Tom, you are our kind of king of cheap deals, aren't you? Because you always come onto our weekly meetings and say, "Have you seen? So you can get an XYZ for this much." So your latest find is quite spectacular.
Yeah, well, because I'm kind of in the market for a new electric car, I've signed up to all these things, and I keep looking at the deals available. And there's one this week that I just thought, hey, can that be right? And it's a leasing deal for the Aura 03, which used to be called the Funky Cat.
Right.
Which, it's not our favourite car because we thought it was too expensive. But you can have one on a lease now, which is no deposit. Don't have to put down any deposit at all. £169 a month.
I mean, that's
for 2 years. So, no, you can only do 5,000 miles a year. If you want to do 8,000 miles a year, which is more sensible for me, is 193. Which still,
with nothing down.
Nothing down. If you want to put like £1,000 down, it goes down to 110 quid or something. Like, I mean, you can fiddle around with the figures, but basically the worst case scenario, which is that you don't have a deposit at all, 160 quid a month. And I'm like, hang on a minute. If you've got an electric car, or if you've got a petrol car at the moment, and you're just poodling around in it, and you think, well, I need to change it, what do I do? You might be spending, I don't know, 100 quid a month on petrol. Yeah. So if you can charge it overnight and it's a couple of quid a night, then you just think, well, that's 90 quid. And that's nothing.
What's going on? Why do I not trust it?
Well, I know. The road tax is what, 10, 20 quid a month probably on a petrol car as well. So you take that out. And after a while, you just think, well, this is a really, really cheap car. And I assume, I don't know, I mean, maybe the residuals are better than everything else in the market, or perhaps they just want to shift some. Get them out on the road. It's a good advert if people are driving.
Clearly they want to shift some, but that's stupid cheap. Like, you can't even get petrol cars that cheap. Even a Fiat 500, you can't get that cheap.
Yep. Yeah, it was the cheapest price. And people say, oh, well, so it's 2 years, so no deposit, and it was 5,000 miles, which is not many, although it will suit a lot of people. Yeah. So 8,000 miles was still under 200 quid a month.
But even if you need, I don't know, 12,000 miles or 15,000 miles, you're still going to be looking in the 200s, which is still nothing really a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the no deposit thing that we've discussed before, haven't we? It's quite cleverly worded, deposit, the word deposit, isn't it, with lease deals and everything? Because basically, at the end of the day, you're just giving them money. You're never going to see that again.
No.
Yeah,
it's not a deposit that you get back.
Exactly. It's so when you say it's a deposit, it's basically a down payment, and not even that, because you're not. When then the leasing thing ends, you're not going to get that $6,000 back, are you? It's literally just
it's not like renting a house or putting a deposit down on something which is then taken off the price. No, it's not. Well, I suppose it is, but it just makes the monthlies lower, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess it does. But yeah, so you are sort of paying for it over the longer period, I guess. But yeah, it's just finding that money up front.
So here's a question. If you were then reviewing the Funky Cat again, knowing that was the price it was going for, what are you saying about it?
Yeah, well, I think it's much better. I mean, you can't...
what a great car!
Yeah.
I think
it's the same.
We've had this discussion internally, haven't we? So about, whether we go in to review a car again, if giving a car a low score because of its list price is too high, and then you can suddenly get it for £200 a month, which makes it a lot cheaper. Does it affect what we thought of it, whether we still think it's a good buy or not? But that deal might disappear next week, in which case then the score goes back down again. So it's a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah, well, like we were discussing, was it last week, about that Honda ENY1, and it's £9,500 off now. Suddenly makes it much more reasonable car, doesn't it?
Yeah, but still not quite there yet. It's still not £110 a month compared to a Funky Cat, is it? Blimey, that's so impressive.
Guys, we've got some more buying advice required from our
now
listeners.
Tom's here. Take advantage of him. Go for it.
I'm going to do, yeah. Right, okay. Two car ones, so one charger one. I'll try and route through this as quick as possible because we're already at 22 minutes. Hey guys, it's from Simone says, I'm thinking about getting a Mercedes EQA through work under a salary sacrifice scheme. It's £389 for the entry level spec. Is that a good buy? Should I opt for the AMG? Tom Barnard.
Well, salary sacrifice, that's presumably the amount it's going to cost her after they've taken off the 40% tax rate.
Sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, so that sounds like quite a lot for an EQA. I'm sure you can get a Tesla Model Y as a private lease for $399. So that seems a big amount to me, but I don't know. Who knows what the salary sacrifice sheet looks like at her company. The AMG version of that, I would imagine, is just like a trim level. They call it something like AMG line, don't they? So it'll have some bigger wheels, sporty and some seats, floor mats, and a red stripe on the interior or something. So I would always tend to go away from that because I don't like big wheels and sporty suspension. But question of your own personal taste, I suppose. Some people will like the fact it's got AMG written on the floor mats.
Yeah, I think it depends what you want, really. I mean, I was looking at it very briefly earlier. I mean, I think the standard one, which is the one you're talking about, Simone, is a sort of WLTP figure of just over 340 miles. And I think if you start going to AMG and 4MATIC and four-wheel drive ones, that drops to about 260. So I don't know. I mean, I tend to like stuff that goes a bit further. So I would probably, unless you really wanted to impress the neighbours with some snazzy wheels, as Tom says, or a red stripe, or you want the extra performance that comes with it. But I don't think it's a lot. I think it's 40 horsepower more or something for the AMG one. I would stick with the normal one. Okay, so yeah, we'd say stick with the standard one for that one. Second one, Andrew Douglas says he's considering an Astra Electric as a company car, but I want to know what the real world efficiency of the car is. Vauxhall have made lofty claims about 5 miles per kilowatt hour, which I refuse to believe until it has been wind tested long term, because he was asking if we'd done it, and I said, we haven't really had one long enough to establish that. He wants to know what the real efficiency looks like over the long time, including cold and warmer conditions. Is he going to get 5 miles per kilowatt hour?
I'll leave that over to Tom, because you had one for a little while, didn't you? You had one for a week or so.
Yeah, and I think you did the test on it, didn't you? And I came away from that car really impressed because I really like the way it drove, because it's lighter than other electric cars. I thought it was better built than things like an MG, because we had an MG4 next to it, didn't we? Do you remember? Yeah. And there were just like bits of trim that felt better, and there was less painted metal that you could see on the inside. And I got home and I drove it around for a while and just looked before it went back at the efficiency. And it said 5 miles per kilowatt hour. And I was like, bloody hell, that's the best I've had in any electric car. Is fine, and I wasn't trying. You're obviously notoriously lead-footed, and it was on a motorway, and it was just normal roads, normal driving, and it was 5 miles per hour. So I was like, "That's the most efficient electric car I've ever driven," and was surprised. But it was quite mild. I think it was. It wasn't hot, it wasn't cold. It was nice springtime.
I was in a t-shirt. So, I know that.
Yeah,
it was t-shirt weather. Yeah, so maybe winter time. So the average electric car during winter will lose about 21% of its range. So won't be as efficient. So we'll probably maybe be around early 4s potentially.
Yeah, they had one on that winter test that you went on, didn't you, Nick? I don't know if you got a chance.
What was the results?
I think it did. I looked it up when I saw that email come in, and I thought, I think it was doing early 4s, or late 3, or something like that. But anyway, it was proper cold though, wasn't it? Where you were
that was minus
extreme. 9. Yeah, you're not really likely to get that if you are in this country for a very brief period. But so I suspect it would be mid-4s, something like that.
Which is still really good.
I'd be thrilled if the Ioniq did anywhere near that. Yeah, crikey. So I think that new Stellantis the slightly bigger battery and the new drivetrain with the heat pump and everything, it does make quite a big difference. So I think you're not going to get 5, Andrew, but it's pretty good, I would say.
But you'll get 5 on a mild day if you drive with a gentle foot like Tom does, not with a heavy foot like I do.
Exactly.
Fine.
Okay, and our third query from our lovely listeners is from a chap called Stu. Says, loving the podcast, eagerly waiting my new EV any week now, and I need to get my arse into gear in terms of booking an install for the home charger. Basically, he wants to know whether he goes for having the manufacturer sort the installation out for him, or just buying a charger and getting a local electrician to come out and fit it. Which he says will probably work out cheaper, and it probably would. So he wants to know what's his advice. Should he go with the manufacturer's one, or should he go and try and do a little bit of, sort his own kind of buy the charger?
Get quotes.
He's done that. He's done that, but he wants to know. I think he wants to know what is the best practice, really. And I think if you go with a manufacturer one, you've got that slight peace of mind that if there's a problem with the charger, you can at least call them and say, there's a problem. I don't think there will be. They're fairly straightforward, aren't they? I mean, we've all gone, I think, having said that, 2 of ours have both gone wrong recently. But there's always the danger if you buy the charger and get the local Sparky to fit it, I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job. But if there's a problem with the charger, there's always the risk that they'll say, well, has it been installed properly? Or your warranty doesn't cover, after installation, you're on your own, really. So I think for full peace of mind, probably go with the slightly pricier option of getting you may end up getting the same electrician, because a lot of these people use local contractors. They don't, if they're based in Brentford, they're not going to go and fit a charger installation, not going to drive up to Dumfries to go and do it. They'll probably use a local agent to do it. So you may end up getting your local electrician who's gone to contract anyway, but at least it would be part of the same job. But I don't know what you had done. Have you got one fitted, Nicola? Did you get?
So I've got mine. I got mine through My Energy. So I've got a Zappi charger, and mine has all had warranty and everything all included with it. So they've been looking after it. If there's any, I've had no problems with it whatsoever. But they sent out a guy to come out and fit it for me, who is like a
My
Energy guy that comes out and fits. It wasn't like a local electrician that came out and did it. But I do recommend having a little look at My Energy and Zappi, because I've had no issues with my charger whatsoever. I've got the cable connected to it, which I find is so much easier. I know it doesn't look as smart, but I find it so much easier. But it is, it's got a fully tethered thing, and it's all pass-coded. It's connected to my solar panels, which I have on top of the house. So sometimes I can charge in eco mode and just use everything that's coming from solar. And they've been nothing but brilliant for me. Zappi, been very good. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
Yeah. So there we go.
We've rabbited on a lot. So shall I do postback? Should we cover off some?
Do the postback. Yeah. Go on then.
Okay, no problem. Right. Okay. I'm going to probably one subject that dominated the comments last week was Lancia. I'm going to say that because in hindsight, Russ Hill says, I missed much of your discussion at the beginning of the video because my wife was screaming, Lancia, you idiots. It's pronounced Lancia.
That's because Tom was calling it Lancia. So we all just agreed.
Well, that's kind of what we do, doesn't it, really?
The thing is, Porsche.
Yeah, I know. Porsche.
I
Skoda.
I know, but this is Italian. As you know, I learn Italian. My Italian teacher always corrects me on things. When I spoke to her, and I said, "Oh, you'd like it? I've got an Abarth 500 outside." She kind of like, it's almost like she'd sucked a lemon or something, because she said it's Abarth. It's a hard T at the end. There's no TH at the end of it. So yeah, I imagine Lancia is the same, creates the same response effectively. So anyway, we'll move on from that. Musketeer 009, possibly not their real name, says because Tom, you were saying that every Lancia falls apart and goes rusty. So the only rust-prone Lancia with the first 6 months of the Lancia Beta saloon. After that, the rust issues were found. Lancia bought better quality steel. I had a Lancia Beta Coupe 2000. It was a great car and didn't suffer the rust issues. I think you and I both know people who've had Deltas and all kinds of things, and they've just slightly gone back to nature, haven't they, after a certain amount of time? So
yeah, in fact, when I was a whippersnapper, there was somebody I worked for who had a late Beta Coupe, and you could literally open the door by reaching inside through the rust hole in the rear 3/4 panel and opening it from the inside.
No.
I mean, it was that bad. It was hilarious. And there was one side that didn't rust, and I said, "Why is that not rusting?" He said, "Because it's made of newspaper and filler." So it was that's the only time they didn't risk.
Yeah. Paper mache.
So they certainly did. I think the later, like Dedras and things, if you remember those, Mike, they were made of galvanized steel because they were trying to get rid of their reputation.
But exactly.
Yeah, but certainly, I'm sure that there are plenty of people who had rusty Lancias. Sorry,
Lancias, exactly. Well, Mark Bennett wants to redress the balance. He says, definitely bring back Lancia with that Ypsilon. The rust issues are ancient history. The build quality under Stellantis will no doubt be on point. Variety is the spice of life, and it would be a great additional option. Yep. Dobster says, yes, I really like this Ypsilon. It looks epic, especially the Stratos rear lights, which I think you like the look of, didn't you, Nicola? Maybe when the other models arrive, it will give them reason to try them selling here. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, we don't. Are there any UK plans that finalised for this car, Tom? Do we know?
I don't think they're finalised. It's all that kind of, you never know, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which means they're probably not going to make a right-hand drive, and then we're probably not going to get it. So
that was always. But the last few years of Lancia in the UK was slightly kind of a sad decline, wasn't it? Because you could only buy the left-hand drive Ypsilon, couldn't you? That kind of odd-looking thing. Paul Meyer says, Lancia back, great. I had a couple of Integrales, look at you, which were wonderful, though needed a complete set of replacement tyres every 7,000 miles. Sounds like someone who drives like you. Sounds like someone who drives like you, Nicola.
Love it.
Let us hope they come back here in the UK. And Helipeak says, an electric 037, and that was that lovely coupe that they went rallying in, wasn't it? It said, in Martini Racing livery. Come on, no, me, overexcited, he says. Yeah, I'd be up for one of those. Again, it was like earlier, it's companies with a fantastic back catalogue of products that, with a bit of reinvention. You can see how well the 500's done and how well the Mini's done. There's got to be, there's got to be potential there, hasn't there? Yeah. And the final one, subject of estate cars. I found someone who doesn't like estate cars.
What?
This is quite hard, yeah.
Doesn't like a long boy?
Grizzly HP2 says, let's be real, 4-door saloons with an extra hump on the back to make it look even longer. The epitome of ugliness. So there you go. I'll leave that on with you.
No, that's pretty much going to upset the entire electrifying.com team. Absolutely, because everyone's a fan of a long boy, aren't we?
I'd call them an estate, dear.
I don't mind an estate, but yeah. I'll play along with everybody else. Yes, I love an estate.
You don't have to play along. You can be your own person, Mike. That's fine.
Can I? Okay. Well, I'll stay on the estates. Glenn McKenzie says, estates, yum. I still long for an Alfa 156 sport wagon. Well, I think they're pretty cheap if you go onto Auto Trader or other car selling places. But yes, an Alfa electric estate, that could work well. I could see that being quite good. General observations we've had from the comments. Wendy Hopkins says, excellent podcast as always. Even if you do the cold weather test like you did, Nicola, use a Kia e-Niro. She's got one and says it's got an excellent range even in winter. I've heard this whenever we go on about, I put a screenshot saying this car's done 4.2 miles per kilowatt. There's always someone with a Niro or an e-Niro that kind of puts a screen grab at something that's done 5 and a bit, so they do seem to be incredibly efficient. What else have we got? Yes, people saying about the Postman Mike song. Mike, which isn't me, says my postman Mike vote equals bin it. Okay, so that's good. Yep.
Well, we haven't sung it today, so there we go.
Thank you.
Right.
That's much relief. Colonel Commissioner Rennick,
What a great name.
Says no, 4 no's, and then says, why would you butcher a classic cars? Only new cars need to be electric. Classic cars must stay the way they are. Electrifying just rips their soul out. If you own a classic vehicle and electrify, you're missing the point in having one. Now, I can see both sides of this argument because, I kind of agree that some things are sacred and shouldn't be messed around with. But there are plenty of classic cars that had really lousy engines.
Yeah.
They made a lot of. And if it allows you to use that car on a daily basis, which you perhaps wouldn't have done. I had an old Mini, which was lovely, but the A-Series engine was terrible. It was awful. It was letting me down. If that had a little electric motor in, I mean, A-Series was hardly rare. I mean, they're getting more so now, but I think I would be tempted to use it more.
We were literally talking about my dad's Spitfire, and the engine underneath that thing is terrible. And it just, like, you put your foot down, it doesn't really go. There was never that much oomph behind that thing. If you can chuck an electric battery inside that, an electric motor, you'd have way more fun with it because it's designed to have a bit of fun. I know it feels faster because you're low to the floor and you have the roof down, and my dad likes to play James Bond music while he's driving it. So it makes him feel cooler because he is very cool. But I feel like that would be the kind of car that, the cars that don't have the oomph, I feel like an electric version of that would do really, really well. I do. But I understand where he's coming from. I do.
We can ask the listeners to suggest classic cars that would be better with electric. My vote would go to a Citroen DS. That was a terrible engine in a brilliant car. It was never meant to have that. And maybe
a DeLorean.
Yes.
That had a terrible engine, didn't it? That had an old Renault truck engine, didn't it? An old van engine. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great as electric, a DeLorean. Yeah.
NSU, anything with a rotary, because they just break. So an NSU R080, I mean, it was an interesting engine, but you had to rebuild it every 300 miles. So a Mazda RX-8, imagine that. They're cheap.
That'd be good. Yeah, so if you let us know the cars you think would be perfect for classic cars and perfect for an electric, and the ones who absolutely should never be interfered with. So we'd love to know what you think about that. So and that concludes the postbag for this week, Nicola.
And I think that also concludes the podcast because we're now sitting way over time. And I know that people keep saying kilowatt hour, but I feel if we keep it short and concise, then we're not just going to be waffling on about a whole load of nothing. We're giving you short, concise bursts of information, which I think is just fabulous. If you are listening via Spotify or on your Apple podcast, then please do us a favor and leave a little 5-star and leave us a nice little comment because the algorithm then works in our favor. Let's just help us out a little bit because it's nice to be nice. The algorithm then works in our favor and then we might sort of jump up the charts a little bit and then more people will start listening. And likewise, if you're on YouTube, comment everything. Add to Mike's postbag because he doesn't have enough to do on the podcast.
Thank you. Well, the more talking we do, the less singing there is. So that works true. In my favour. So yeah.
That's true. Okay. Well, I feel it's only fair that we finish on a song.
Oh, God.
All right. We'll finish there. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.